So we are here with Jennifer Engle, and she is going to be bringing us Bridging the Distance, Cultivating Leadership through Online Learning Communities. So we want to welcome the Jennifer today, and I am Tracy Ortiz. I'm your session host. So today's session will run about 45 minutes. It'll include Q&A at the end. If there are any requests that you have, Jennifer, throughout, please feel free to also include that. Whether you're joining us from down the street or around the globe, we're so glad you're here. And please use the chat for any questions, or even if there's any technical issues, please put that in the chat. And we are so excited to have you. So now I just wanted to introduce Jennifer Engle from Angelo State University. And we are just excited that you are here. So go ahead and you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Tracy. I am so glad to be a part of this conference. It seems like every year, great sessions are always a part of this conference, and so it's a little bit intimidating to want to share my story. But you know how when you are so passionate about something that it's hard to contain it into a presentation, especially a 45-minute presentation. I feel like I could talk about PLCs and online connectedness and all the things so much. So forgive me if I seem to go all over the place because I have done a lot of presenting in my short life, and I feel like this was hard to, like I said, contain. So I did my best, and I will share my screen. And one thing that I want to ask you guys to do is to, well, two things. One, I'm going to share a Padlet with you, and I would like for us to interact on the Padlet a little bit. And so you'll see that link and a QR code and those kinds of things in just a minute. But also, I have a copy of my presentation, and I am going to, well, hang on one sec. I'm going to try to get it so that I can give it to you. Hang on. Let me go up here. And it is, I put it right here so I would be able to find it. I put it somewhere. And so I made this, excuse me, I made this into a link so that you guys could, when you see that link, it will automatically prompt you to make a copy of it. So that might be an easier way for some of you guys um, let me get back up here. That might be an easier way for some of you guys to get that Padlet link. I know sometimes when I'm in a Zoom, it's not very easy for me to copy a link or open a link. So just so if you need that, you'll have one of my favorite things about presentations are all the resources somebody uses. And these are a set of resources on the very last slide that I have found quite engaging and helpful. And I keep going back to them. So I just included all of them. They're not all cited on slides, but I feel like it's better to have more sources than less. So that's another reason why I think you might want to make a copy of this presentation, this slideshow, so that you can have those. So I wanted to talk to you guys today about learning communities, online professional learning communities, online learning communities. There's lots of ways to frame them. I have been a teacher in the public school districts in Texas for 16 years before I came into higher ed. And I joined Angelo State University's faculty as an adjunct instructor and then an instructor and now an assistant professor 10 years ago. So I'm in my 11th year and I absolutely love it. So for the first 8 years, I was working in lots of different programs. I taught some of our foundational courses. So I got to interact in all different aspects of our curriculum and instruction department courses and programs. Well, 2 years ago, I was asked to become the program coordinator for educational leadership, which encompasses principal and superintendent certification in Texas. And it's ironic, I had never taught a class in that particular program. I feel like I had taught a lot of different programs, but not that one. I had been a leader in public ed, so it was a natural fit, but I hadn't done that. And so one thing, well, before I get there, these are the three objectives that you may have seen when you were reading the descriptions of the sessions. Excuse me. So I want to talk about challenges to developing that community, that sense of community in online courses and online programs, and then the strategies that I used to create an intentional PLC in my virtual program and maybe some things that you guys could do. And then I haven't technically evaluated them. That's part of my future steps. But in talking about how we can evaluate them, that'll be the last piece that we talk about in terms of candidate engagement. So here is the PLC, and there's a QR code that will take you there. And then if you are in the presentation, this, I'm thinking maybe I can share the PLC this way too. I mean, the Padlet. This Padlet, the first thing that I want you guys to do while you're waiting on me is the first thing is what's one word you associate with community and online programs? That's what I want to get talking about first. Community and online programs. So you can either type it into the Padlet if you're already there, or you can, and this Padlet is not embedded, so it will not populate on my slide, but you can see those words there. And then I've got it on my laptop over here so I can see it. But let me grab this link for you to put in the chat as well. So there is the link to this Padlet. And the reason that I am wanting you to download this Padlet or to access this Padlet is because I want to know your ideas about community and online programs so we can collectively grab those words there. And then we're going to talk about PLC strategies, and I'm going to take a poll. And then I want to have you share takeaways, drop links, post ideas, and then that will help me, but I will post them there as well later. And so we can keep this going if you guys want to maintain that. So when I think about community, I'm just going to pop in some of my own here. I think about, oh, that was the word, Tracy, I was about to use. That's cute. Belonging. And the big one for me is networking, because that is one of the key goals I have for this program. And I think about relationships, something that's very important to me personally, and then as an instructor. So if you guys can just pop some in there. Then I also think about, let's see, did you guys put them in the chat? I don't see any yet. You can put them in the chat too, and I will add them to this list. Anybody else? Any other words that come to mind when you think of community in online programs? Thanks, Tanya. Relationship building. I tend to think that relationship building is so much more important in online environments, because a lot of people who I sit and talk with, they say I'm very amicable, I'm very outgoing, I'm obviously, I just lost my word. I am obviously two-way communication. Thank you, Julie. I'm very outspoken and outward. I can't think of my words. And all I can think of is intrinsic and extrinsic. Anyway, I am very outgoing and I love to talk to people, but my students don't necessarily know that. And so I encourage them to Zoom with me and talk to me on the phone and watch my videos that I put in the class so they can see how I like to talk and how I want to build relationships. But that's just not always possible, especially in how you're going to see our programs are laid out. So the opportunity to connect and identify personal. Thank you so much, Rochelle. I like that too. All right, so community obviously is very important, and we don't necessarily, it's not an automatic in our online programs, and so it's something we have to be intentional with. So we'll talk about some ways that we can do that in this session. So here's a little bit of background about why I started this quote unquote informal case study that I am in the process of conducting. So here's my situation. I teach in all online classes in an asynchronous kind of setting. There is hardly ever, it is very rare if there's ever a synchronous requirement in our courses. All asynchronous for the most part. There's no residency, there's no cohorts, so they can start any semester they want. They can take a semester off when they want. There's no requirement for them to come to San Angelo, Texas. And if you're not familiar with Texas, San Angelo is about 3 to 3.5 hours from anything, from any other big city. So we're off the beaten path, and we're not easy to get to. No interstate comes to us. So there's no real reason for them to come here ever. And these classes are accelerated. They're 8-week classes. My program about 3 years ago, I think they switched it from a 36-hour to a 30-hour to be more competitive with all the other programs that are doing the same thing. So it's very fast paced in terms of week by week and term by term, and just being done with the program within probably close to a year, maybe a year and a semester in some cases. So that was the situation, and it just feels like their head is on a swivel and they're working full time teaching. I don't know if you guys are familiar with K-12 environments, but it's 100% of your time nonstop for about 10 months, if not all year. And so to add grad school onto that with families, they don't have much time for me to say, "Hey, you want to hang out? You want to connect?" I've got to make it purposeful and intentional. So this case study came about at the very onset of me taking over 2 years ago as program coordinator. I said, okay, I want to teach every program, every course in the program. And with a 10 course program, 3 of those are foundational courses. So research, data collection, things like that. So 7 of them are program based. And I wanted to teach all of those as fast as possible and get an understanding of everything. Well, in doing that, I got a very good understanding of every candidate because as they were coming through, unfortunately for them, that many of them gave me great feedback and said they were glad that they had me for every course, but I feel really bad that they didn't get some other perspectives of educational leadership. But I got to know the candidates, I got to know what was going on. And then when I stepped back from that, and I wasn't teaching every course, I found, wow, it's really hard to get to know them when you're not teaching them every course every time. But backing up to when I'm in the middle of getting to know the program and getting to know the candidates, I'm collecting some informal data along the way. I am taking note of their performance, of their experiences, of how things are going with them. And I came to understand some challenges that we'll talk about in just a second. But I kind of started implementing a little strategy here and a little strategy there, and it didn't take on a life of being a PLC in my mind until a little bit later, probably about a few months ago. And like I said, I've had the program in my little wheelhouse for about 2 years now. So in that whole process, I'm constantly taking data, collecting data, thinking about ways I can improve this whole situation. And a PLC just seemed like the best way to do that. So let's talk a little bit about challenges. So when I say there's challenges to connection, that connection is hard, I'm talking about all of the ways that you have probably experienced this challenge too, or these challenges too. The lack of spontaneous connection, coming from a place of face-to-face teaching in a K-12 classroom where I can walk next door and visit with teachers there and see students in the hallway, see students at football games, see students everywhere. Online learning is obviously very different. And I go out in the hallway here from my office and I see college students in classrooms talking to each other in the hallways, and our students don't have that. So there's this lack of spontaneous connection. The sideline chats, the when you walk in class, you've got 5 minutes before school starts, or sorry, class starts, and you are catching up, or you're talking about an assignment. You're about to break away from the class and you reconnect for just a minute to make sure you understand. And oftentimes, I see students in my classes having the exact same challenge, and they don't feel like there's an automatic outlet. There's an automatic way to put out that fire, to fix that. And I have noticed when they go to a platform that I have created in my classes for 10 years, that all of us in our programs in my department have created these discussion boards that are ongoing. We call them Class Cafe, and I'll talk about them in a minute. They they say, I'm sorry to bother you. I'm sorry to ask this question. Nobody would apologize for bumping elbows with somebody on the way out of class saying, do you understand what we're supposed to do next week or later this week? Nobody would apologize for that. And yet they get online and they apologize for that. And so this lack of spontaneous connection is definitely a challenge. Then there's uneven engagement. You have in a face-to-face class, you have people who talk all the time, and then you have people who talk never. And then you have this continuum of everybody in that situation. Maybe they speak once, maybe they speak more frequently than not, but you have this uneven engagement. And I feel like there's a lot of uh, there's some encouragement to do that. If you're somebody who never speaks and you're hearing people speak around you, you're more encouraged to do that. And for some reason, that is not the case when you're in these online formats and you're encouraging them to ask questions and post and interact and network and share. And they think, no, my ideas are dumb. I don't want to say anything. And that happens more frequently, I think. And the uneven engagement is a negative and it's a challenge in online courses rather than face to face. And then measuring success is tricky. I'm looking at how my students are connecting in class, and I think they're doing a fantastic job. I think it's so beneficial. And then I have a conversation with somebody and they say, so sorry. I feel very disconnected. I don't feel like I am able to engage with anybody. I don't feel like, and so I think what my measures of success are, I see them posting, I see interaction. I love Blackboard Ultra now because it'll tell me exactly who is posting, how many responses, all the things over here in the margin. And I think, well, they're all interacting, but they don't, their measure of success is very different from me. And so it has to be measured in different ways. And I'll talk about measurement too. And then there's the technology issues. I will say that as I just said, I like Blackboard Ultra for a lot of reasons. So I am looking at Blackboard Learn that we just stopped using this summer. And I think about some of the ways that we didn't have the automatic connections. And I had Collaborate there where they could access it, but now it's front and center on the right-hand side and they can interact and they can jump on a call and meet. And I see how it's so much easier now. So I think, well, nobody ever got in those Collaborate sessions before when I opened it up to allow them to initiate them. And then there's the discussion boards. You know, technology is awesome in that we have all of these tools at our fingertips, but some of the best tools that I could use in my online classes were third party, like Padlet and these kinds of things. And they didn't necessarily use the ones that were embedded in the LMS. And so they were sometimes a barrier or an obstacle for them to get to use them because they didn't have easy access to them. And so sometimes our LMS is the issue, technology issues. And then my email just stopped working today. And so I wasn't everything I wanted to do through email, access the ADEIL conference and do all these things was two times harder. It was more challenging for me. And so they have these kinds of technology issues that make connection hard for them too. So one of the things that I think about when I think about the ways that what might be challenging and what might be necessary in my courses. I tried a lot of little things, and I think a lot of us will try these digital moments. We'll embed something in the sorry, we will embed something in our course that will trigger this reflection or this connection or all of these small ways where we can have digital moments with each other. And Barber found in his study that this increased the sense of community. It increased learning experience. There was a great reaction with creativity. But the one thing that it didn't do, and something that's very important for me, was beyond class. Like I said, my program is a 30-hour program. It goes by very fast. So what I am trying to help them build in these communities is not always the here and now. My students may finish my 30-hour program but not be certified. So they may be taking their assessments, which to become a principal these days, it is two tests in Texas. It's two tests and they're very expensive, and one of them is portfolio based and it's very time intensive. And so sometimes they need this mentoring and this networking and this community of people that they can get help from along the way. So I don't need them to part ways after they're done with my program. I need them to keep staying intact. And so these digital moments that I'm creating in the courses, if it's not building this sense of community and network beyond the class, that's not going to be it for me either. So here are some strategies that I implemented. So I broke them down into kind of three areas. The first one is building foundation and connection. So here's one thing that I was super excited about. A year ago, a year and a semester ago, I implemented orientations, and I have had such a great time with these because, like I said, we don't often meet synchronously ever, but I made these mandatory before they can do it. Sometimes in the past, I've had three of them. They've had to happen right after courses have started, but in general, they are right before courses start. So I make them mandatory and we all get to see each other, whoever's on the call. And it's not, if they can't make this one, because I won't offer multiple times. So if they can't make this one, they can come to the next one. And I just note that they haven't had an orientation yet. But they're going to be seeing and interacting with people in their program. So that is a huge benefit. So I love these because it's setting a foundation of here I am as your program coordinator, as your instructor. Here I am, and I'm going to do some things for you along the way. And I'm going to outline how I'm going to do those, and I'm going to set you up for success in a lot of different ways. So here we are setting up the framework for your success in this program. So I loved the orientation. And then the virtual mentorship is another one that I would say falls in this building foundation and connection. So at the onset in that orientation, I tell them I am going to mentor you throughout this thing. I'm going to make all of this make sense to you. I'm going to connect the courses for you. I'm going to connect the two assessments that you're going to have to take. I'm going to connect all of this to your real world role as an educational leader, an instructional leader. And so I'm going to help you see how all these pieces fit together. And I'm going to be here all along the way as your instructor sometimes, as your program coordinator all the time, and then as your mentor, as the person who you can call on anytime to vent when you are thoroughly frustrated. I am going to be your virtual mentor. And then the next one is strengthening communication and support. So I do all kinds of communication. Every week they're getting emails from me. Every week they are seeing announcements in a course if they're taking one of my courses. Every week they're going to get feedback from me within a few days of submitting their assignment, because most of the time in my classes it builds onto the next assignment, and so they need feedback immediately. They are going to have meetings with me. I laugh because they say, I see that you have office hours. And I said, do I? My office hours for you are whenever you're free, whenever you need me. So just email me and tell me when you're free, and I'll send you a Zoom link. And so Zoom meetings and feedback and announcements, all of these things are constant communication from me and support. So that kind of falls under the virtual mentorship because I'm always, they always have a link to me. They always know how to find me, even if they're not in one of my courses. And the the next one kind of fits in this element too in terms of Padlet. So in Blackboard, we had this Blackboard org, and it had all of these resources, all of this information for them. And that's where it was like a one-stop shop where they could go get tons of details and deadlines, and announcements would be posted there. So they were always staying up to date. But it wasn't always, it didn't always have everyone in my program. So that was problematic. If I thought everybody was getting the message, they weren't. And then if you exited the program, if you finished your program and you were not fully certified yet, so you still needed access to all this information, they didn't have access to it because they weren't in Blackboard anymore. They didn't have access to Blackboard. So I created a Padlet, and it has all the same resources and documents and links to ETS and to Pearson, the places where they go test. It had all of this information. And now in Padlet, you can create a map. You can create a Padlet that is a map. And so then they know where each other is, and they say, oh, I'm not alone over here. There's 4 other people in my little section of Texas. Oh, there's 5 people right here down the street from me. And so this map in Padlet is allowing them to see where each other, where we all are in conjunction with one another. And so I'll talk about this in a minute, but one of my goals is to go on the road and meet up with them and have them come to me if they are close enough. And so this is one way that we can actually put that into play. So the Padlet has the map, but it also has the announcements and it also has its own little discussion board. And these are all like separate Padlets that I link to in the main Padlet so that they can have all the resources and then they can click to these other Padlets and share insight, share resources, ask questions, and do all the things that they are doing in the classes because the classes have these Blackboard discussion boards and they are these forums. We call them Class Cafe. And I encourage them to talk all the time about what they're doing in these classes. And it has been slow building. Like I said, we've done this for 10, 15 years in our online courses, and sometimes people use them and sometimes they don't. But one thing that I want to say has been amazing is so when they get all the way through my program, the last two classes are called, or one's capstone and one is practicum. And in practicum, they are required to go into this class cafe and post every single one of them every week for 16 weeks, because that's a 16-week class, this practicum is. And they are blowing Class Cafe up. And I taught this practicum class 2 years ago, and nobody spoke in there. It wasn't used near as much as it is now. And the last 3 terms that I have had this Class Cafe and posting in there once a week, it has just been so beautiful to watch how much they're helping each other, how much they're sharing, how much they're just. One guy went in there last week and he said, "Hey, it's almost October. Tell me your favorite thing about fall." And it was just amazing how many people popped in there just to answer his question. So that is one of the ways that I'm measuring success in this PLC and all the purposeful, intentional strategies that I've laid out along the way, because the difference between how many people are interacting in this class cafe and practicum at the end of their program now versus the very first or second semester that I taught practicum, it's hands down. It's hundreds more posts. I would be willing to venture it's almost 1,000 more posts. So that's one of the ways that I'm measuring success along the way in terms of all this mentoring that I'm doing and fostering all of this collaboration. Another thing that I have been able to do is the PASL is the portfolio-based assessment, and they struggle with it, and sometimes they aren't successful. So I've created this little network of people who were successful and have agreed to be mentors for people who need to either resubmit or they just have questions and they want to talk it through with somebody because they're not allowed to talk it through with me. I'm not allowed to give them feedback on their ideas that they are currently typing up and submitting for PASL when they are registered for that assessment. So that has been a huge success, a huge help, having mentors that will be able to and willing to help these other individuals. And so people aren't afraid to ask and they're not afraid to help. So those are some ways that I have been trying to do that. I see that I have like 7 minutes left, or no, I have 17 minutes. Okay, that's awesome. I was losing my 10 minutes. So the next thing that I want to do is ask you to take a poll, and the poll is in the Padlet. So if you've already accessed the Padlet, you can see that I have 4 questions there, and these are very purposeful. I have a reason for asking these. Have you used any of these PLC strategies? The digital moments, like I talked about earlier, but in just ways to spark reflection and discussion. Peer mentorship, kind of like what I was talking about with that assessment, pairing participants for guidance, maybe pairing them for assignments that they have to do in class or other things. Sorry, I keep hitting my mouse. And then the third one is community book or journal clubs, shared readings, pop-up themed events, kind of like what I talked about when I said going on the road, networking sessions, even if those are online or if those are in person, just ways that you can foster connection there. I'm just curious if you guys have participated in any of those types of PLC strategies. So also, if you want to, I will get my, I wanted to get in the chat. Sometimes this is harder than it has to be for me. The chat. I was going to say I would get in the chat. And oh, there it is. Gosh. Okay. If you want to add which of those strategies you've done there. Digital moments, if you want to add it in the chat, I can add it to the Padlet, but digital moments, peer mentorship, community book or journal, clubs, and then pop-up themed events or networking sessions. I see we've got one person says they're doing peer mentorship. Oh, two people. Cool, cool. All right. Anybody else? All right. Okay. Well, the reason I'm asking is because my next, sorry. My next steps are these things. Like I said, I want to go on the road. I want to go to, let's say, the Dallas area or the San Antonio area or East Texas or any little place up toward Texas Tech in the Panhandle somewhere. I want to go to those places and I want to say, "Hey, I'm here. You want to come join me?" And just get out on the road and see people. My parents live in Waco. I go to Waco quite frequently, and every time I'm there, I feel like getting online and saying, "Hey, anybody want to meet for coffee? Anybody want to hang out?" And just letting them interact with each other, with me. And so this is something that I want to do, and I don't necessarily want to do, I don't want to have the university pay for my travel or anything like that. When I'm at a conference that's somewhere in our great big state, I want to tell people, "Hey, I'm here." And I want to be purposeful in that. And so I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to plan those. Another thing that I want to do, we have such amazing textbooks that we use in our course, in all of our courses. And I think there's probably about 5 of them. They're really great. But there's so many other leadership books, and I read them on my own. And I hear from people saying that they are reading them too. And so I want to create a space where people can have some quality book club kind of environments, but also journal articles or those amazing articles from all the different organizations I'm a member of and all of the articles that they link to, and I read them or I skim them and I think this is awesome. And I don't want to give people one more thing to do, but I would love to have a space, and perhaps it's something when they're at the end of their program or right after they're done where they can still stay connected to this PLC. I want to start providing space for those things. And then another one is I want to gauge all of the engagement. I want to look at the metrics. How many posts? Like, I don't have the statistics and the actual numbers for the Class Cafe posts that I mentioned in the practicum classes, but I want to put that in writing. And that's my next step in this informal case study, is to make it more formal and to say how many people are engaging and how many emails am I getting and what are people saying about the PLC. And I want to just formalize that and then measure it. And then the last thing is Glassman. One of the articles that you'll see in the resources, not Glassman, but they talk about online collective efficacy scale that they created, and it has some amazing questions. So check out that article and see the actual scale that you'll see there, the inventory, and it has some amazing questions that I want to consider. So whether or not I use their scale or my own, I really want to adapt that and again measure the engagement that I'm seeing. So these are my next steps, and that's why I'm curious about who is doing what in that poll, so that I can interact with you and network with you. So the last thing is I want to chat in the chat about strategies you could implement tomorrow and things that this may have, maybe everything that I said, because I find this a lot when I go to sessions, maybe everything I said, you say, "I already do all of this." So is there anything that you could improve on those strategies? Is there anything that you want to implement that you've been thinking about, but now you're like, "Okay, she said Class Cafe really, really works. And all of these other pieces along the way really, really work. And I want to do this." So which strategy could you implement tomorrow, and what barriers might you face, and how could you overcome them? So let's chat about that in the chat. before we part ways or ask questions and give answers and all the good things. So, what do you guys think? Any kind of strategies? And I don't think I gave you as much specific information about strategies as I would have liked, as I have written down on my papers. So maybe you're thinking about strategies that you want to do, or you know somebody else is doing, or you already do, and you want to share that with us. Need to focus more on digital moments. It's interesting how I think Dr. Robinson Levant, is that right? I think it's interesting that we know we need to engage more and we get swept up in the moment. Just like I said, they're busy. I am busy too in trying to hang on by my fingertips. And so sometimes I forget. Just pop it in there. One time I gave a question in my feedback. It said, email me this week and tell me one great thing that happened for you, one great thing that's going on. And the number of emails I got, it's kind of funny. I was surprised. I was surprised at how many emails I got, even though I'd asked the question. And I was surprised. And they said, I had never gotten a question posed to me like that at the end of feedback. And I thought, oh, I'm going to do this every week. And I never did it again. So things like that, I think, are focusing on digital moments like that. I really think I should do better, and I don't. And this whole idea of the PLC is helping me lock into some ideas like that to situate it. Anything else? Anybody else? Strategies you could implement tomorrow that would strengthen community in your online programs.
I was just gonna say what you talked about earlier as far as the human connection in the hallways really resonated with me because being an all online program, uh, you don't think about it that detailed. And so I naturally thought, and then your comment about, kind of focusing in on just asking them how they're doing or what went great kind of connects back to the human piece of things. And so I think that's why I had the comment about digital moments, trying to find a way to insert care in my instruction that goes beyond just the normal everyday assignments, because that's the human piece I think we get lost in the online world. But to your earlier point, it's so hard to make time to be thoughtful. And, you know, yeah, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks go so quickly, and you have 30, 35 students. The grading and all the other components just get so massive that, the thoughtfulness maybe gets swept. And I wouldn't say completely swept, but I got some opportunities there.
Good. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I will say, one thing that I have started doing is if I want to make sure that it happens that day, it goes on my to-do list. Introvert, Dr. Rivera, thank you so much. Did you see how much I struggled with introvert and extrovert? I could not find them. All I had was extrinsic and intrinsic. But anyway, I feel like if I put it on my to-do list, then I will attach that. So that's I'm glad you shared that. Thank you so much. Emoji, I love that. Oh, I've got to write it down on my little to-do list. Somebody, where did I see emojis the other day? It was in oh my gosh, now I'm going to be trying to think of that as soon as we get off. It was, oh, it was in the ungrading book that I just finished. And she talks about in her assignments, she has them attach an emoji about how they felt, how confident they were in their ability to do the assignment. And it has given me a whole new perspective of emojis. So thank you, Dr. Rivera. That's awesome. I love that. And so quick on both sides, both so quick. They can give it to you and you can know exactly how they're doing. Favorite song lyrics. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I don't know why I just said ma'am. I just said ma'am. Oh, thank you guys. I love these. Somebody was doing a group project and they had to meet, one of my students had to meet with a collaborative team on her campus. And like I said, she's a teacher and everybody's busy. So she said they had to explain ways that they were going to get that collaborative team to engage and contribute and just to join the team. And she said, okay, quick, you're going into the QT, which in Texas is a convenience store. What snack are you grabbing? And that's exactly how she framed it to all of them. And now every time, and she said, if it's me, I'm grabbing such and such. And now every time I go in a convenience store and I see that thing that she was talking about, that popcorn, I think of her. And so, same thing with a lyric or the favorite food or the favorite snack. I love this. Yeah. And I think to Dr. Robinson Levant's point that these little things will just help build those connections that will get stronger and stronger. So I like that. Thank you guys so much. All right. My email address is there, and obviously you can probably see it at the beginning and then the Padlet, all kinds of ways that you can reach out and connect with me. And I invite that because even more than students, I love to connect and collaborate with my peers in this amazing field of education and especially online education. So please don't hesitate to reach out.